Namo Amida Buddha. The so-called exclusion in the Primal Vow. Quote, excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offences and those who slander the right Dharma. End quote. Many people that come into contact with the Primal Vow of Amida Buddha experience 2 types of reactions. They are happy when reading the all-inclusive message in the first part. Quote, if, when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings of the 10 quarters, who sincerely entrust themselves to me, desire to be born in my land, and say my name, perhaps even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. End quote. But they become unsure right after reading the last sentence. Quote, excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offences and those who slander the right Dharma. End quote. Something seems wrong at first reading. An exclusion still exists. So after all, the Primal Vow is not quite universal. There are some people that aren't embraced by the compassion of Amida. But is this the way things really are? In my first days as a Jodo Shinshu follower, when I still did not have a direct contact with anyone from our tradition, I was trying really hard to understand the purpose of this exclusion. I admit that I got really frightened every time I read that part. It was like a lump in the throat, like I never managed to really enjoy my meeting with Amida. What if I committed one of those grave offences? I kept asking myself over and over again. I had met with Amida's Primal Vow in a very difficult time, when I felt like I couldn't handle my spiritual life anymore. And now, after the joy of hope, I kept hitting against this phrase that was refusing to go away. However, it wasn't long until calmness got in my heart for good. Everything is all right. How could you doubt me? Seems that Amida would have said. We have all been admonished at least once by our mothers when we were kids and our behavior got unbearable. Maybe we're afraid in that moment that she will leave us, or who knows what she will do if we do not behave properly. But in the end, she was always there. No matter how we acted, admonishing us, trying her best to change us, but always welcoming us with her love. In the same way, Amida Buddha's compassion is like a mother's love, and the exclusion in the Primal Vow is just an admonishment addressed to some stupid and crazy kids that are always ready to make mistakes. It's not an exclusion in its own way, but a warning. Some actions are very serious. Do not commit them, or else. But that or else remains unfulfilled because of the first part of the vow that proves the unconditioned salvation of a real mother. So, let us ask ourselves, when reading the so-called exclusion, what is the real purpose of the Primal Vow? Shinran said in Tanisho, quote, if it were only by observing precepts and upholding rules that we should entrust ourselves to the Primal Vow, how could we ever gain freedom from birth and death? End quote. In chapter 16 of the same writing, while correcting the erroneous view that Nembutsu followers must go through a change of heart every time they get angry or do something bad, Shinran said, quote, suppose that attainment of birth were possible only by going through changes of heart day and night with every incident that occurred. In that case, human life being such that it ends even before breath exhaled can be drawn in again. If we were to die without going through a change of heart, and without abiding in a state of gentleness and forbearance, would not Amida's vow that grasps and never abandons us be rendered meaningless? End quote. If Amida Buddha has endless compassion and sees every being as his own child, wouldn't it be absurd to abandon them because of their ignorance? Such an attitude would be against the Bodhi mind and the most elementary Mahayana vows. A Buddha can't make a statement and deny it immediately after, or state its contrary, something like, I will save you all if you just say my name 10 times. But actually, I changed my mind and I impose some hard conditions that you won't be able to meet. The truth is, Amida Buddha knows the real capacities of unenlightened beings, and he didn't create his vows for those capable of reaching enlightenment through their own power. Quote, to rid yourself of blind passions is to become a Buddha, and for one who is already a Buddha, the vow that arose from 5 kalpas of profound thought will be to no purpose. End quote. In Shinran's opinion, this exclusion actually shows that even the worst beings are included in the salvation of Amida, especially those who committed the 5 grave offences and slandered the right Dharma. Quote, by showing the gravity of these 2 kinds of wrongdoing, these words, the exclusion words, make us realize that all sentient beings throughout the 10 quarters, without a single exception, will be born in the Pure Land. End quote. I think that mentioning of these gravest offences is a clue that they are not wanted in the behavior of the disciples, but at the same time the effects of those offences are annihilated by the compassionate power of Amida Buddha when we genuinely entrust ourselves to him. First part of the Primal Vow. Although the so-called exclusion appears in the larger sutra, in the Contemplation Sutra the situation is completely different. Here Shakyamuni Buddha tells Ananda and Vahadehi that a man lying on his deathbed and who committed such evils as the 5 grave offences, the 10 evil acts and all kinds of immorality, and who, if left to the mercy of his evil karma, he would fall into the evil realms and suffer endless agony for many kalpas, can be born in the Pure Land if he meets a good spiritual teacher, listens to his advice, and says, Namo Amida Butsu, even 10 times. Quote, when he is about to die, he may meet a good teacher who consoles him in various ways, teaching him the wonderful Dharma and urging him to be mindful of the Buddha. But he is too tormented by pain to do so. The good teacher then advises him, if you cannot concentrate or meditate on the Buddha, then you should say that you take refuge in the Buddha of immeasurable life. In this way, he sincerely and continuously says, I take refuge in the Buddha of immeasurable life, Namo Amida Butsu, 10 times. Because he calls the Buddha's name with each repetition, the evil karma that would bind him to birth and death for 80 kotas of kalpas is extinguished. When he comes to die, he sees before him a golden lotus flower like the disk of the sun, and in an instant he is born within a lotus bud in the land of utmost bliss. End quote. This is a hint at the Primal Vow, where to say Nembutsu even 10 times is mentioned as the assurance of birth in the Pure Land. Thus, we should look to the above passage as proof that those who did the 5 grave offences are not really excluded from Amida's salvation. After presenting the same passage as the above from the Contemplation Sutra, Master Tan Huan explained it as follows, quote, from the evidence of this sutra, we clearly see that ordinary people of the lowest grade are all enabled to be born in the Pure Land through faith in the Buddha if they do not abuse the right Dharma. End quote. Pay attention here, please, as this is extremely important. Those who committed the 5 grave offences are enabled to attain birth in the Pure Land if they have faith in Amida Buddha, but only if they do not abuse or slander the right Dharma. So it seems that slandering the right Dharma is even worse than the 5 grave offences. Let's continue to read Master Tan Luan's explanations, which were also quoted by Shinran Shonin in his Jodo Shinshu, chapter 3. End quote. Question 1. The Sutra of Immeasurable Life states, those who aspire for birth are all brought to attainment. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offences and those who slander the right Dharma. The Sutra of Contemplation on the Buddha of Immeasurable Life states, those who have committed the 5 grave offences and the 10 transgressions and who are possessed of various evils also attain birth. How are these 2 passages in the sutras to be reconciled? Answer. The first sutra speaks of committing two kinds of serious evil acts, the 5 grave offences and the slander of the right Dharma. Because of committing both these two kinds of evil acts, a person is unable to attain birth. The other sutra speaks only of committing the evil of the 10 transgressions and the 5 grave offences. Nothing is said of slandering the right Dharma. Because a person has not slandered the right Dharma, he attains birth. End quote. So again, Master Tuan Lan stresses that birth in the Pure Land can be attained even by those who made the 5 grave offences, on the condition that they do not slander the right Dharma. Another question is then addressed to obtain a more clear answer on this matter. Quote, Question 2. Suppose a person has committed the 5 grave offences, but has not slandered the right Dharma. In the sutra, it is granted that such a person can attain birth. Further, suppose there is a person who has only slandered the right Dharma, but is free of the 5 grave offences and other evil acts. If he aspires for birth, will he attain it or not? Answer. Although he has only slandered the right Dharma and has not committed other evil acts, he will definitely be unable to attain birth. End quote. The answer is very clear. Birth in the Pure Land for those who slander the right Dharma is impossible. But why is this so? Let us see the explanation of Master Tan Luan. Quote, This is because slandering the right Dharma is an evil of extreme gravity. Further, the right Dharma is the Buddha Dharma. Such a foolish person has already slandered it. How can it be reasonable to think that he would aspire to be born in the Buddha land? Suppose the person aspires for birth merely because he craves to be born into happiness. This is like seeking ice that is not water or fire without smoke. How can it be deemed reasonable that he attain it? Question 3. What are the characteristics of slandering the right Dharma? Answer. Saying there is no Buddha, no Buddha Dharma, no Bodhisattva, no Bodhisattva Dharma. Deciding on such views, whether through understanding, thus in one's own mind, or receiving the ideas from others, is called slandering the right Dharma. End quote. The Master's answer is very logical. To negate the existence of transcendent Buddhas, including Amida, with their various manifestations is, according to him and Shinran, who quoted him, the most evil act of slandering the right Dharma. This means that those who consider the story told by Shakyamuni in the larger sutra of Dharmakara Bodhisattva becoming Amida Buddha to be a fictional story, and Dharmakara or Amida to be fictional characters, symbols, or metaphors, are actually saying, there was no Dharmakara Bodhisattva, and there is no Amida Buddha. Their act of denying the existence of Amida Buddha in his transcendental form, Dharmakaya of expediency, Sambhogakaya aspect, or the body aspect, for the sake of saving sentient beings, is abusing the right Dharma. For this reason, those who spread such distorted visions automatically exclude themselves from birth in the Pure Land. More than this, when their present life is over, they will be reborn in the great Avicii hell, as Tan Luan explained. Quote, He who has committed the transgression of abusing the right Dharma will not be able to attain birth, even though he has not committed any other evils. For what reason? The Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra says, quote, Those who have slandered the right Dharma will also fall into the great Avicii hell. When the period of one kalpa comes to an end, they will be sent to the great Avicii hell of another world. In this way, such evildoers will consecutively pass through 100,000 great Avicii hells. The Buddha thus did not mention the time of their release from the Avicii hell. This is because the transgression of slandering the right Dharma is extremely grave. Further, the right Dharma refers to the Buddha Dharma. Such ignorant persons have slandered it. Therefore, it does not stand to reason that they should seek birth in a Buddha land, does it? End quote. The larger sutra is the Amida Dharma, or the right Dharma taught by Shakyamuni Buddha, with the intention of helping sentient beings to be born in the Pure Land of Amida. Those who do not take the sutra and Dharma as being genuine, but call it fictional or a mythological story, how can they be reborn in the pure land of a Buddha whose existence they actually deny? Indeed, as Tan Yuan said, quote, "It does not stand to reason." Does it? End quote. Now please pay attention, as it is extremely important. Both Shakyamuni Buddha in the larger sutra and Master Tan Yuan talk about slandering the true Dharma in the present moment. Quote, "The right Dharma refers to the Buddha Dharma. Such ignorant persons have slandered it. Therefore it does not stand to reason that they should seek birth in a pure land, does it?" End quote. Have slandered it refers to a slander that still goes on in that person's mind, but it does not refer to a situation in which he slandered it in the past, and now, through a change of heart, he understands the evil that he did and repents it greatly. It's logical to say that a person who still slanders the Dharma, denying the actual existence of Amida Buddha and his pure land, and spreading such perverted views to others, cannot have a true faith and sincere aspiration for birth in the Pure Land. So he is self-excluding from Amida's primal vow. Pay attention here. Not Amida is excluding such a Buddha, but he excludes himself from the salvation offered by Amida. As I previously said, Amida Buddha wishes to save us all, but he doesn't take us to his Pure Land by force. So if we do not wish to go there, or we do not accept the existence of that enlightened realm or the existence of Amida, then we will not go there. Nobody can go to a place which he thinks doesn't exist and can't be saved by someone whom he considers to be an imaginary person. This isn't logical, is it? However, the exclusion or self-exclusion sentence in the Primal Vow has no effect if slandering the Dharma becomes a mistake of the past, a mistake which is now realized and repented. So the one who slandered the Dharma in the past, but goes through a change of heart in the present time, admits his mistake, feels sorry for his act, and relies with sincerity on Amida Buddha's compassion, will attain birth in the Pure Land. It is logical to be this way. As Shinran said, excluded reveals how grave the evil of slandering the Dharma is, but doesn't mean that one who has repented, accepts the existence of Amida Buddha, and entrusts to him is not saved. In Buddhism there are no eternal punishments except for a mind locked in a mistake, which in fact punishes itself, but the mind that changes its ways cannot be the same as the old one. This reminds me of something that happened during Shakyamuni's time. A man offended the Buddha really badly, throwing every kind of harsh words at his face, but the next day he felt sorry and asked for forgiveness. Going before him, he kneeled and asked forgiveness. The Buddha said, quote, "Get up. The person who stays now in front of me is not the same as the one who offended me yesterday." End quote. The Nembutsu follower who has genuine faith in Amida Buddha cannot slander the Buddha Dharma, and so, if he did that before receiving faith, the karmic effects of such a slander have been purified, as he is now a new man. A born-again person in the light of Amida Buddha's compassion, completely separated from the old man of this life or the past lives. Namo Amida Buddha.